Good morning, delegates. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the 2020 Return and Services League of Australia, New South Wales Branch Annual State Congress. I'm joining you live today from Anzac House in Sydney. This year has seen the world impacted by COVID-19, and today we are gathering in a new virtual world. That will not stop us from delivering to you a Congress and AGM that is as familiar as possible given the technology restraints we find ourselves faced with. We will begin shortly with the Pledge of Allegiance. In today's agenda, we have factored in several short breaks throughout the morning to get you up and away from your screen. It's important that you monitor your own time to ensure you are back and joining us virtually on time. I'd like to begin by acknowledging the traditional owners of the lands on which we all meet today and pay my respects to elders past, present and emerging. Now members, for those who are able, please be upstanding for the Pledge of Allegiance. I, Ray James, do hereby swear allegiance to the Commonwealth of Australia and its people, and do hereby subscribe to the Constitution of the Commonwealth of Australia and the Constitution of the Return and Services League of Australia, New South Wales Branch. Thank you. You may be seated. Now we move on to the Act of Remembrance portion of Congress for 2020. This will commence with a wreath-laying ceremony, followed by the ode, the last post, a minute's silence, and then the rouse. This ceremony was recorded earlier with the support of Headquarters Forces Command, Army Personnel Support Unit at Victoria Barracks, and the Australian Army Band Sydney. For those of you who are able, please join in me to be upstanding for the Act of Remembrance.
They went with songs to the battle. They were young, straight of limb, true of eye, steady and aglow. They were staunch to the end against odds uncounted. They fell with their faces to the foe. They shall grow not old, as we that are left grow old. Age shall not weary them, nor the years condemn. At the going down of the sun, and in the morning, we will remember them, lest we forget. Salute.
Thank you. Please be seated. Ladies and gentlemen, we will now be joined live by Her Excellency the Honourable Margaret Beazley, ACQC, Governor of New South Wales, who will deliver the patron address, accompanied by Mr Wilson. This will be followed by an announcement of Meritorious Service Medal and Certificates of Merit and Gold Badge recipients for 2020.
I pay my respects to the traditional owners of the lands of New South Wales, from which many members are joining us today. Thank you for this opportunity to address you as patron at the end of another year, one that turned out to be more challenging than we expected and in unexpected ways. Despite the difficulties for New South Wales over the past year, from successive drought, fires, floods, and the pandemic, which has impacted every member of the society, the Returned and Services League of Australia, New South Wales, can be proud that it has upheld the mission of its charter to support, respect, and remember our veterans and their families. It was a tremendous achievement amid the turmoil of this past year that the significant commemorations, the observances of Anzac Day, the Indigenous Veterans Commemoration, the 75th anniversary of Victory in the Pacific, and Remembrance Day continued, albeit in different forms, through live commemorations, but with restricted numbers, or through online services made available to all. Many people remarked to me of the respectfulness and the dignity of these occasions. But we do look forward to 2021, when we hope there will be a return to traditional commemorations. Support of the health, welfare and well-being of current and ex-serving members of the Defence Force and their families has been at the heart of the RSL for the past 104 years. In more recent times, mental and psychological well-being has been a focus of this support. With the release of the IG-ADF Afghanistan Inquiry Report, that critical role of the RSL is now more important than ever. Indeed, I am sure all RSL members, as are all Australians, aware of the seriousness of the report's findings. Major General Brereton, Assistant Inspector General of the ADF for this inquiry, in April this year forewarned of this, suggesting that there was a clear role for the RSL, among other associations, and I quote, "to provide information about available support services through your communications and to assist in the development and implementation of a coordinated and seamless approach to the provision of appropriate welfare support to serving and ex-serving members and their families." And I am pleased to hear the RSL has worked with its members who wish to contact with counselling on this issue. RSL New South Wales' detailed submission to the Australian Government's Productivity Commission inquiry into compensation and rehabilitation for veterans, publicly released in July 2019, is evidence of the RSL's long-term engagement in veteran welfare, including through its charitable arms, RSL Defence Care and RSL Life Care. There is, of course, a wider cultural and educative purpose to the RSL that positions it as an institution of trust at the centre of our communities. That is, to establish, set and exemplify inclusive and shared values of respect, teamwork, courage and trust, to lead and to govern through the new Constitution's democratic processes, and to focus on community, as well as on camaraderie and mateship. The disruptions of the past 12 months have given us a deeper appreciation of the value of community, including the connective role of sub-branches in rural and remote regions in our state. Against this backdrop, now is an opportune time to strengthen the RSL culturally, with a strong mandate for strategic renewal to grow and invigorate a diminishing and ageing membership, and to position the RSL through its activities as the leading ex-service organisation. I congratulate RSL New South Wales on its strategic plan 2021-2026 and its vision for the future. By recognising the changing nature of our society, the League has had to adapt to remain relevant while retaining its core purposes and traditions. By putting the veteran, including the younger veteran and the sub-branch, at the centre of our communities, and working as one RSL collaboratively across the state, I am confident the League can be as relevant and as important for all our communities for this century as it was for the last. The plan to reinvigorate the standing of the RSL through stronger engagement with the wider veteran community, especially younger veterans, through social, digital and recreational engagement is exciting, as is the creation of a cohort of members trained to connect veterans in need of the wide-ranging services that are available, and to ensure that veterans continue to receive the services and the assistance that they need. The League is commended for setting a future direction, and as your patron, I look forward to hearing about the successful implementation of the strategic plan and seeing the strength of a united and focused RSL in New South Wales. It is now my honour to congratulate the newly elected RSL New South Wales Board of Directors, Ray James, President, who has been acting President since June 2019, Philip Bridie, Philip Chin, Stephen Graham, John Hutchinson, David McCann, Greg Reid, and Clinton Gross. They join independent directors Sophie Ray and David Bell. Their tenure commences with the rise of this Congress, and I wish them well as they tackle the transformative changes outlined in the strategic plan. And I also thank the outgoing board for their work during the transitional period. Recognising the invaluable service of RSL members is an honour that will always continue. And I am proud to announce this year's Meritorious Service Medal Award winners for 2020. The Meritorious Service Medal Award is considered the highest honour which can be bestowed upon a service member of RSL New South Wales. All recipients must have 30 years continuous RSL membership and have given 25 years continuous outstanding honorary service. In 2020, there are 4 members who have been awarded the Meritorious Service Medal. Mr. Colin Wilson, from the Windsor and District RSL sub-branch. Mr. Wilson has been the Treasurer of Windsor and District RSL sub-branch for 29 years, where he carries out duties with the strongest dedication. His dedication often sees him put the RSL ahead of anything else. Mr. Edward Helm, from City of Queanbeyan, RSL sub-branch. Mr. Helm joined City of Queanbeyan, RSL sub-branch in 1990, becoming President in 1994, a position he still holds today. Furthermore, Mr. Helm was instrumental in setting up the Welfare and Wellbeing Centre for fellow veterans in the local community. Mr. Paul Robert Bryant, from City of Fairfield, RSL sub-branch. Mr. Bryant joined the RSL in 1987, serving as Honorary Secretary, Treasurer, Vice President, and currently as the President of City of Fairfield RSL sub-branch. Mr. Bryant has written 3 books commemorating the service of local Fairfield men and women who served from World War I to date. Mr. Maxwell Lewis, from Cessnock RSL sub-branch. Mr. Lewis is currently the President of Cessnock RSL sub-branch, a position he has held for 21 years. His work in the local community has been recognised by the Department of Veteran Affairs, Cessnock Rotary Club, and Cessnock City Council. He has also served as the President of Cessnock Legacy since 1996. It is also my pleasure to present the Certificate of Merit and Gold Badge. This is the highest award that may be made by the League to a person who is not a service member. This year, the Certificate of Merit and Gold Badge is presented to Mr. Brian Mullen from Castle Hill and District RSL Sub-Branch. During his time as principal at 3 local schools from 1992 to 2012, Mr. Mullen introduced Anzac Day and Remembrance Day services. Mr. Mullen was instrumental in the sub-branch's Centenary of Anzac activities, where 22 commemorative events took place, including the Year 11 Students' Centenary of Anzac Ambassadors program and the school's Centenary of Anzac essay competition. Congratulations to each of our recipients. Not only do we value the service of all award winners, we recognise that you inspire others, and as importantly, for the future of the Returned and Services League of Australia, New South Wales, that in your example of service and leadership, you inspire the next generation of Australians.
Thank you, Your Excellency, for joining us live today from Government House. And I'd like to congratulate those members awarded the Meritorious Service Medals and Certificate of Merit and Gold Badge for the past year. And Your Excellency, just in acknowledging your patronage for RSL New South Wales and Mr. Wilson's patronage for the RSL Auxiliaries, I thank you and wish you both a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year on behalf of RSL New South Wales. I'd like to acknowledge the members of the League who are awarded life membership in 2020. Mr. Jack Abernathy from Engadine, Mr. Lester Boots from Branxton, Mr. James Cody from Maroubra, Mr. Philip Connor from Burringbar, Mr. Neil Cromedy from East Maitland, Mr. Barry Edwards from Huskisson, Mr. Tony Fryer from St Mary's, Mr. Peter Harvey from East Maitland, and the late Mr. Noel Jackson from the City of Wollongong, Mr. William Lottie from Canley Heights, Mr. Ian Muirhead from Bass Hill, Mr. Anthony Starling from Ostermere Thramul, Mrs. Serena Sutherland from Liverpool, Mr. Dennis Thompson from Penshurst, Mr. Graham Toll from Ingleburn, Mr. Alan Vale from Gloucester, Mr. Gordon Wade from Goulburn, Mrs. Margaret Wallace from Wauchope, and from the RSL Auxiliaries, Mrs. Ruth Field from Bateman's Bay, and Mrs. Marcia Lancaster from Tillagiri. And our final award is the Lady Woodward Cup. The Lady Woodward Cup is awarded to the RSL Auxiliary that has donated the highest amount to RSL Defence Care in the past 12 months. This year, the Cup is awarded to Burwood RSL Auxiliary. I congratulate them all. Delegates, that concludes the Congress portion for today. We'll now take a 10-minute break, and please be back at your computer at 9:32 hours. Welcome back. We now commence the Annual General Meeting for 2020. I confirm that we have 187 delegates present and that a quorum is present as required by Clause 25 of Appendix C of the Constitution. And I declare that the 2020 AGM open. Clause 14 of Appendix C of the Constitution states that the President or Chair of the Board will preside as Chair of every general meeting. As such, as Acting President, I'll be chairing the AGM today. I'll shortly commence the Acting President's report, which will be followed by the Finance and Auditor's report. The past 12 months has been a difficult time for our League, for the community, our nation and the world. Many of our members endured significant loss during the ferocious bushfires that engulfed New South Wales at the end of 2019 and into the beginning of 2020. Our sub-branches and RSL New South Wales arranged for donations and urgent assistance to get veterans and their families the support they needed. We also had many of our younger members serving in the ADF deployed as part of the bushfire operation. This was the largest call-out of reserves ever and they showed their skills and ability to support such complex and life-threatening situations. As the smoke settled from the bushfires, a new threat emerged: floods. And then, just when we thought respite at last, the coronavirus pandemic reached our shores. COVID-19 would play a significant role in our lives, not only with the health of our members, but also our way of life. Our civic leaders had to make critical calls, and so we were placed into lockdown, and our freedom and movement was restricted. Venues where many of our members hold meetings also had to close. Perhaps the most significant and toughest decision of our league was to cancel the Anzac Day marches in Sydney and across New South Wales. This also included not holding services as we do every year. This was heartbreaking for us all. However, we adapted, and so many of us would be involved in the Light Up Your Dawn initiative. This saw Australians across this great nation of ours wake up and stand in the end of their driveways and listen to the Anzac Dawn service broadcast on radio. In my own street, all my neighbours stood still, in silence, and paying their respects to those who fought and died. This initiative was led nationwide and demonstrated what could be achieved if the League worked collaboratively as one. As the lockdown and restrictions continued, our members continued to postpone their meetings and activities. But like committed servicemen and women, I noticed that many members continued their support to those in need across our communities. I thank and congratulate all our members who have helped our fellow members and all the other veterans and families. Your resilience and commitment to the League is outstanding. I'm deeply humbled to have been elected as your president. I acknowledge the expectations placed upon me and the other directors you have entrusted in leading the RSL in New South Wales. We are absolutely committed to the future of the League, proudly respecting the past, but with steely determination to ensure we're all strong and relevant for the next 100 years. I would like to acknowledge and thank all those who stood for director positions on our board. It is a big commitment and shows the strength within our organisation. With over a quarter of the membership casting votes, we have an active, focused membership who wish to see our organisation move ahead and retain its community leadership and support role for all veterans and their families. Your new board will stand up immediately following the rise of this AGM and get to work. We have much to do. I now wish to return my thoughts to this year, to the year that we are reporting on today. Your board and Anzac House team continue to work hard, and in the latter half of the year, this was mostly done from home. We held board meetings and committee meetings via our computers. Virtual or Teams, meetings became the norm. It was also important to continue to communicate with our members, especially as the isolation of COVID-19 created so much anxiety, loneliness and uncertainty. The board was also pleased to learn that many sub-branches continue to communicate with their members too, at least by phone, and some made house calls. Further, as I mentioned previously, it was especially pleasing to see some reach out to the wider veteran community as well, flying the RSL flag and demonstrating our charitable purpose. The year for Anzac House was very difficult, as the CEO and board had to make some very difficult decisions. The need to get the budget in balance saw a big reduction in staff, and with additional impact on revenue from a Hyde Park Inn during the pandemic. Many of those remaining had to reduce their hours and their pay. Everyone in the community was making a sacrifice. We worked regularly with government and held numerous smaller ceremonies to ensure we continue to honour and remember the significant commemorations. Our fundraising was significantly impacted too. The board recognised the importance of sub-branches retaining all monies raised and changed policies accordingly so they can. However, with the pandemic, even the fundraising arm, the RSL New South Wales auxiliaries, and our sub-branches could not raise money that they usually would by selling tokens. However, undeterred, many auxiliaries quickly adapted. For example, many have been making face masks that can be used to stop the spread of COVID-19 and help keep our communities safe. I'm sure that our volunteers will be back out and fundraising in 2021 when life goes back to fewer restrictions. Fundraising is very important for getting the RSL presence out in the community, and I thank everyone who makes that commitment. During all this, your board was getting on with implementing actions associated with the new constitution and continuing its work on strengthening governance across the league. Whilst this was important, perhaps more importantly, we were seeking members' feedback on the draft strategic plan. The strategic plan has been developed off the previous membership surveys on the previous 18 months and responds to a new strategic environment in which there are so many other veteran charities and the members' initial feedback to the CEO of last year's Congress. The CEO was tasked with developing the strategic plan and then conducting seminars and workshops with the membership. This became difficult with the COVID-19 restrictions. Many sessions were held online and others held in smaller events to ensure the health and safety of the membership. However, the CEO and I travelled over 30,000 kilometres and visited some 100 sub-branches, listening and learning. Also, it is a plan that will ensure our league can continue to do its core business and restore its position as the leading veterans charity and pillar of strength and influence in our communities. Our core purpose is to help and support veterans and their families. The strategic plan is the most widely consulted plan that the RSL New South Wales has ever undertaken. Although delayed from July because of the pandemic, the final plan, considering the critical and valued member feedback, was finally approved by the board in October. However, it cannot be fully implemented yet because the funding model has yet to be agreed on. The CEO is working on this, and it will require leadership from our new board and all sub-branches if we are to successfully implement the plan. We must work together to realise the vision for RSL in New South Wales and continue to exist, remain relevant and grow. Like sub-branches, State Branch has had a tough year financially. However, contrary to unfounded rumours, we are solvent, as you can see from our financial report. We were never at risk and delivered a strong financial result despite the impact of the pandemic. This was achieved by cost-cutting and generous support from several sub-branches. COVID-19 did present some challenges, and the CEO and staff at Anzac House have done a great job to steer the operational side of RSL New South Wales. I'd particularly like to acknowledge the extraordinary commitment and resilience of Peter Gamlin and the staff at Hyde Park Inn. One significant and again important strategic decision was to move RSL Defence Care to the new Veteran Services Division of RSL Life Care, following the winding up of WBI Trust. The trustees informed RSL New South Wales in December last year that it would wind up by mid-2020, leaving RSL New South Wales with the costs associated with maintaining RSL Defence Care and Veteran Sport Australia of approximately $3.5 million a year. This was $3.5 million a year that RSL New South Wales and Anzac House did not have. As you should know, RSL New South Wales is the sole member of RSL Life Care, a non-for-profit charity company limited by guarantee. RSL Life Care is not just a retirement home or aged care business, they also run successful programs to support veterans. It was a natural fit for RSL Defence Care, and RSL New South Wales Board welcomed RSL Life Care's decision to acquire the RSL Defence Care program, and this was also agreed on by the RSL WBI trustees. The challenge for RSL New South Wales was to ensure our charitable fundraising contributions from sub-branches continue to flow to RSL Defence Care, who is our primary means of delivering quality service to our veterans. I urge every sub-branch to look to this critical area of donations. All donations come into RSL New South Wales and are tracked on the website for transparency, and then passed annually to the RSL Life Care for the sole purpose of supporting and developing RSL Defence Care. Has your sub-branch made their donation yet? Have you seen the performance reporting from RSL Defence Care? So you can see where the donations are being spent. This is all on the website. This regime enables all our donations to meet regulatory obligations, and concurrently we can see where the funds are spent by reporting from RSL Defence Care and RSL Life Care. To further align RSL Life Care as our effective service delivery arm, the RSL New South Wales Board has influenced the update and amendment of the RSL Life Care Constitution to better reflect the important role the business has in supporting our veteran community. The RSL New South Wales Board thanks RSL Life Care Chairman and Board of Directors for a successful outcome. RSL New South Wales submitted a successful business case to DVA for RSL Life Care to be the lead proponent in a consortium to build and operate a new Veterans Wellbeing Centre in Nowra. This new centre will be great for veterans and families around the Nowra, South Coast, Shellhaven and Illawarra areas. It will also deliver services to veterans and their families across New South Wales and work with other centres such as the National Centre for Veterans Health at Concord. The business model developed by RSL New South Wales and RSL Life Care provides a strong basis for developing other centres around New South Wales, and Anzac House is already investigating the feasibility in Wagga, southwest Sydney and around Williamtown in the Hunter areas. Furthermore, there are opportunities to get strong alignment with existing centres in the far north, the mid-north coast and northern beaches. This process incorporates working closely with licensed clubs and these existing centres, and is pleasing to see the alignment with clubs' strategic direction as well. Delegates confirmed last year at Congress that RSL New South Wales was to be member-based organisation and that service delivery would be provided by the government, RSL Defence Care, RSL Life Care and other ex-service organisations. The core RSL, our sub-branches, would provide critical and effective camaraderie, events, engagement activities such as sport and recreation, fundraising and commemoration. So your board and the CEO have listened, and that is why the strategic plan outlined a path for our sub-branches to become a one-stop shop, a referral hub whereby veterans can be given the right advice and assistance. It is our intent that a veteran and their family are not turned away from a sub-branch, but in fact are given support and referred to the right service. These services may be transitioning services, employment services, health services, pension services, financial services and other wellbeing services. Also, the sub-branch itself provides a welcoming environment and one where a veteran can join to help each other and other veterans. Late this year, the government announced the formation of the Transition Authority, the Joint Transition Authority. The recommendation of a Productivity Commission. And the authority's purpose is to assist ADF personnel transitioning out of defence and effectively connect them to DVA. The operating concept is seen as an important role for ESOs, and the RSL has been working towards being the lead coordinating ESO to help provide an assurance framework and connection to the community through its nationwide network of sub-branches. This concept aligns with the new RSL New South Wales strategic plan. I'm also pleased to report that we have signed an MOU with Concord Hospital to enable the first RSL New South Wales liaison officer to be located at the National Centre for Veterans Health. Bronte Pollard has volunteered to be the first liaison officer and is now developing procedures, so every sub-branch knows how to connect veterans in need to this valuable health service, including an on-site accommodation that is available. This is the type of strategic investment that can be made as we further implement the strategic plan, working as one RSL focused on helping all veterans and their families. We've lost many of our members and family members over the last year. Sadly, due to COVID-19, the number of people present for funerals was restricted. We've also sadly lost serving and ex-serving veterans to suicide. Whilst the federal government has made some significant announcements around the new Veteran Suicide Commissioner and other appointments and investments in suicide prevention, the reality is that many veterans are doing it tough. Every generation of veteran has struggled. However, in 2020, evidence is suggesting that it is tougher than it has ever been. Your board and RSL New South Wales are committed to ensuring every veteran in crisis is provided the help and support they need. We have young families losing a veteran parent and are struggling to pay bills for rent and to eat. We need to recognise this and make tough decisions. How much do we donate to Defence Care to support these veterans? Can we change what we spend on camaraderie to help these veterans in need? We have sub-branches with significant wealth, yet veterans and veterans' families are in crisis and are going without. We can all do more. We need to do more. The veteran community is diverse, and younger veterans are showing that they add value to the community and to ESOs in their post-service lives. We see these veterans showing entrepreneurial skills by running veteran-owned businesses and companies. Veteran Community Business Chamber is one such new initiative that is a collective of hundreds of veterans-owned businesses. The VCBC is a hub for new and established businesses and veterans to share their ideas, experience and knowledge to grow veteran businesses. It also assists partners of veterans who run businesses, whilst the other half still serves in uniform. We have other veteran charities and ESOs that are also ensuring veterans are cared for and not forgotten. They're all doing a great job, and RSL New South Wales and our sub-branches can work with them. We work with them all, and because of our collective wealth and influence, we can and should be the leading charity, connecting veterans to all services they require. In doing so, we will attract more younger veterans to join our ranks, pinning a badge that recognises our commitment to help and support all veterans, and our respect to and commitment to work as one team and the bond that comes with that membership. The board has had an interesting year. It has been through tough times, but the Chair, Sophie Ray, and I have tried to keep you all informed. Our member suite on the RSL New South website is publicly open. It has everything from the board communique, which details outcome of all board meetings, to relevant documents to the financials. You can even see the directors' monthly expenses. We are more accountable and transparent than ever before. Whilst our communication has increased significantly, from going around New South Wales, it has been alarming that many of our members have not seen or heard the information. I urge members to ask their sub-branch and district councils to provide the information and assist with access to that material if required. Most questions we are asked at Anzac House can be answered with a few clicks on our website or by asking your sub-branch secretary. The board and CEO has also maintained an open communication channel with the District President's Council. The DPC has had more active role than before and now is often tasked with reviewing policies and procedures. COVID-19 has impacted how the DPC has met, and the DPC has had a significant role to play and will be tasked to ensure that the districts and sub-branches are well briefed and on point. You'll see the final strategic plan. The intent is to significantly reduce the number of districts and provide each with a full-time paid support role who will, among other duties, support all sub-branches in their respective districts. We know we will have to amalgamate or create chapters from many sub-branches as membership and populations decline in many areas. But we are committed to keeping the RSL presence everywhere so commemorations and connections for all veterans can be maintained. This year, the board re-established the RSL Tribunal and Review Panel. It has been upsetting that some members and sub-branches do not understand their obligations and duties as office holders, particularly trustees. We've had to revoke charters, suspend members and prevent members from running for positions. This has been sad for all involved. However, as your board, we are ultimately responsible for the poor decisions that are made. RSL New South Wales has stood with veterans and their families for over 100 years. In 2020, again, RSL New South Wales is standing with those who served in Afghanistan. The recent IGADF report has made allegations about a very small number of soldiers. Let us not forget the vast majority of those who served in Special Operations Task Group with pride, distinction and honour, many of whom lost their lives while serving our nation and protecting the people of Afghanistan. We need to remain calm and await for the Special Investigator and the AFP to conduct their investigation. As Australians, we believe in the rule of law, presumption of innocence and fair and just hearing. As an ESO, we need to be there for all these people who are impacted by the report and the forthcoming investigation. The RSL needs to provide assistance with welfare and also legal assistance if required. I ask that all veterans and their families to remain calm and pull together. The situation is complex. Our role is there to provide the support. I would like to thank the CEO and Anzac House staff for all their hard work over the past 12 months. I also extend my gratitude and thanks to those who have left RSL New South Wales over the last 12 months and welcome those who have joined us in the staff ranks. I'd like to thank all my fellow directors, Philip Chin, Sandra Lampkin, Brian Slattery, John Hutchison, Philip Bridie, Jonathan Tuckfield, David Bell, and our Chair, Sophie Ray. You've all worked very hard and you should all be proud of the work you have done. To Sandra, Brian and Jonathan, I say thank you for your time on the board. You will be missed. Now I'd like to conclude. What does it mean to be an RSL member? As members, we are attached to sub-branches in our local communities to be pillars for veterans and their families. We are custodians of the eternal flame, a beacon for our communities. We are the link to those who fought and died in wars of past. We are the holders of value, of honour, of strength and unity. We need to be examples of what it is to serve. We hold office for a short period of time, and as we were handed the baton from previous generations of veterans, we'll pass on that to the next. What will be our legacy? Will sub-branches still exist? What is the League of the future going to look like? Do we now have the power and ability and strength to work as one to ensure the League will survive? We're all members of RSL New South Wales. We are one League and we need to act like that. I'm committed to work with everyone to ensure we remain strong. As one, we are strong and we will get stronger and more influential if we work together and grow up in numbers and strength. I'm a returned serviceman like my father before me. The League I joined in 1975 is different to what it is today, but in many ways it is the same. I often hear members talk about camaraderie, but most do not know its origin or its meaning. It's a French word that was derived from Spanish and Latin before. It means companionship, good friendship, spirit of good friendship, mutual trust and friendship amongst people who spend a lot of time together. That is what our members and delegates wanted. Our sub-branches wanted a league based on camaraderie. I encourage all members to treat each other with respect. It is not sub-branch against state branch or us against them. We are one league. We are a league united, a league strengthened, a league healed. We are the Return and Services League of Australia, New South Wales, and I'm proud to be your leader, lest we forget. We'll now be joined by Nicole Hazrouni, RSL New South Wales CFO, who will present the finance report. Joining Nicole today is Daniel Cunningham, partner of Ernst & Young, who will provide the auditor's report.
Yes. Good morning, delegates. I'm pleased to be here today to present the finance report and the financial statements for the year ending 30 June 2020. Today I'll be presenting the overview, the basis of preparation of the financial statements, some changes to accounting standards which were adopted this financial year past, the results of the financial year, related party transactions, key management personnel information, and I'll close with a few comments. We've prepared special purpose financial statements for the year ending 30 June 2020. we're able to elect between preparing special purpose financial statements and general purpose financial statements based on a board determination that RSL New South Wales is not a reporting entity, and this is due to the key criteria that people do not use or rely on our financial statements to help them make decisions about how to allocate resources, and people are able to have their information needs satisfied through the presentation of these special purpose financial statements. Other factors considered in this determination are the separation of membership and management and the size of RSL New South Wales as a charity. RSL New South Wales didn't conduct any fundraising activities during the period. However, we completed a compliance audit of our financial and fundraising systems, processes and procedures, enabling us to apply for our fundraising licence, which was granted to us in February 2020. New South Wales Fair Trading have understood our intention to resume fundraising and have acknowledged that we've worked towards compliance with the Charitable Fundraising Act and Charitable Fundraising Regulation and the specific conditions associated with the RSL New South Wales Charitable Fundraising Authority. 3 new accounting standards were adopted on 1 July 2019. AASB 16, leases, requires us to take up our leases on the balance sheet and we amortise them with a finance charge based on our incremental borrowing rate over the term of the lease. This means taking up the full value of the lease at its present value as both an asset and a liability. In prior financial years, our lease payments were presented as an expense directly to the profit and loss statement. AASB 15, revenue from contracts with customers, and AASB 1058, income for not-for-profits, did not have a significant impact on our revenue recognition as we already recognised hotel and grant income in the same way. Here's an overview of the results for the financial year compared to previous financial years, and I'll talk through the details of these high-level results later in the presentation. This representation shows the impact of the unrealised gain or loss on investment properties, which is showed underneath the revenue and expense lines. This is an accounting entry to adjust the value of investment assets when their fair value is different to their book value. In the prior financial year, we were particularly sensitive to this due to COVID uncertainty. Fair value increases are recognised through other income as a fair value gain, whereas fair value decreases are recognised through expenses as a fair value loss. As you can see, in the financial year 2020, we had an unrealised loss on investment properties of 2.8 million, which subsequently resulted in a net deficit of 356,000. I'll talk through the other comprehensive income later in the presentation. Overall, we had an increase in revenue of 28%. And this is primarily due to the fee-for-service income for the delivery of RSL Defence Care and VSA programs. This was 12 months in the year ending 30 June 2020 versus 6 months for the year ended 30 June 2019, noting that we also had the corresponding expenses associated with that fee-for-service income. Donations and contributions from sub-branches received in the financial year, with nothing received last financial year. An increase in rental income from a market rent review applied to the retail lease at the Hyde Park Inn. And grant income increasing substantially, where we applied for the best grant for the delivery of the RSL Defence Care claims and advocacy services, applying for it from RSL New South Wales in the last financial year, whereas prior years it had been applied from RSL WBI. Represented here, Hyde Park Inn performance. The blue lines at the top show the budget revenue against the actual budget performance, and the green lines show the budget expenditure against actual expenditure for Hyde Park Inn. You can see that Hyde Park Inn performed well for the duration of the year, despite the offline rooms to facilitate the refurbishment, showed there highlighted in pink, August to October, and the impact of COVID on the tourism sector from March 2020 onwards. Occupancy remained high and well above its competitor set during those COVID periods. Expenses were kept below budget for the duration of the year, as you can see represented there in the chart. Peter Gamblin and the entire Hyde Park team are very deserving of our deepest appreciation for their commitment and professionalism during what has been an exceptionally challenging time. So during the financial year, RSL New South Wales operated RSL Defence Care and VSA programs, which were funded partly by RSL WBI for the ex-serving portion of those programs. As Ray mentioned, RSL WBI expressed their intention to wind up the trust, and in doing so, we worked together to ensure that those funds remaining were delivered in programs to support veterans and their families. Of the $4 million spent on or received via fee for service, 80% of that was directly spent in those support services. RSL New South Wales commenced operation of the RSL Defence Care Claims and Advocacy and Community Support Programs, as well as VSA in January 2019. Service agreement was in place with RSL WBI to fund the ex-serving portion, and these programs have continued until RSL WBI no longer had the funds to do so. RSL New South Wales underwent due diligence with RSL Lifecare during the financial year for RSL Lifecare to acquire the RSL Defence Care program, and this was transferred to them in August 2020. The sub-branch support this financial year enabled RSL New South Wales to deliver on multiple fronts. We had great support with respect to disaster relief during the bushfires in December and January, support for RSL Defence Care and for the Anzac House operations, as well as VSA. The chart on the right shows the top 20 sub-branches who donated between July 2019 and June 2020. I'd like to extend our thanks to all sub-branches for your donations and the tireless efforts to fundraise and grow your assets. With respect to expenditure, you can see that overall total expenses have reduced by 4%, and across a number of categories we've seen a great reduction in expenditure. We commenced a program to reduce expenditure in October 2019, and it was monitored monthly by the Audit and Risk Committee, reporting through to the board. We specifically reduced discretionary spend, which shows the reductions outlined in the chart around admin, other employee-related expenses, other expenses, professional fees, legal fees. There were no RSL national capitation fees paid during the financial year. However, the payment of capitation fees will resume in this financial year ending 30 June 2021. Overall, we had an increase in employee benefits expense, with the salaries and the wages of the 23 Defence Care and VSA team members increasing from $1.3 million last financial year, 30 June 2019, to $2.5 million to the year ending 30 June 2020. This difference is 6 months in 2019 to 12 months in 2020. Anzac House saw a reduction in employee benefits expense, with natural attrition occurring during the year. A plan to restructure the organisation was also implemented and completed in June 2020. Over the course of the year, we worked to restructure the organisation to reduce the overall employee benefits expense and consider the critical positions within the organisation. As you can see, when we started the financial year, we had a team of 60 staff members. We had a replacement of 2 positions, and then over the course of the year, through redundancies and natural attrition resignations, we've ended up at 45 members in June 2020. And this includes those 23 Defence Care and VSA team members who have since been transferred to separate entities. The current Anzac House team stands at 20 employees. Provide here a breakdown of the direct support provided to veterans and their families through the Defence Care programs and Veteran Sport Australia. It doesn't include the claims and advocacy work that's done by the team members within Defence Care. However, we can see that close to $350,000 was spent directly supporting veterans and their families through Veteran Sport Australia programs, $325,000 for disaster relief, close to $180,000 in accommodation support, and over $100,000 in household support. Also there we see funeral assistance, utilities and motor vehicles assistance. Overall, client support increased 83% year on year, notwithstanding that we did operate the programs for 12 months versus 6 months last year. Similarly with Veteran Sport Australia, seeing an increase there of 172%. With respect to the statement of cash flows, we've seen a replenishment of cash reserves to support the downturn in revenue from the Hyde Park Inn during the COVID pandemic. You see there's a net outflow from financing activities, and this is due to the new presentation with respect to AASB 16 leases. Our closing cash balance of $5.6 million, we've been able to maintain that through the beginning of the new financial year as the Hyde Park Inn team work to maintain increased occupancy at the hotel. A little bit of information about impairment and other comprehensive income, as these numbers did present quite a large figure on the profit and loss statement. The change in fair value of investment properties is recognised through the profit and loss statement. So we hold a number of properties as investments, being 262 Castlereagh Street, Concord RSL and the Darrarton properties. Due to the uncertainty of COVID, our valuers deemed our investment properties at or below their fair value recorded in the 2019 financial statements. So you can see their total revaluation of $2.87 million being an asset impairment or fair value loss on investment properties. We have made an election to record movements in fair value on our investment assets, which are our financial assets held through other comprehensive income. This means we don't see that movement in the profit and loss statement as we do with the investment properties. We see it below the line impacting other comprehensive income, and that's the $225,000 loss you see reported there. Hyde Park Inn was particularly impacted by COVID, notwithstanding the significant reduction in revenue throughout the hospitality and tourism industry, with a $5 million revaluation decrement being recognised, plus the capital work improvements of $1.8 million, seeing a devaluation there of $6.7 million. RSL New South Wales has a number of related parties. These related entities include the Australian Forces Overseas Fund, AFOF, and Anzac House Trust, RSL New South Wales occupying the premises subleased by Anzac House Trust. RSL WBI and RSL New South Wales had a services agreement in place for the delivery of the Defence Care and the VSA programs to ex-serving veterans, and also shared a number of resources. RSL New South Wales is the sole member of RSL Lifecare. However, there were no related party transactions entered into during the financial year. RSL New South Wales key management personnel comprise a small leadership team. Robin Collins, Raj Nair and Leanne Meyer all resigned during the financial year. Overall, we see a reduction in total compensation paid to key management personnel, and no compensation is paid to the Board of Directors of RSL New South Wales. In closing, I'd just like to recognise it's been a challenging year, with the program to reduce expenditure and restructure the organisation being a pivotal achievement in returning the organisation to a cost-neutral position. These efforts were impacted by the downturn in hotel revenue resulting from the effects of the pandemic. The positive impacts of the consultation with sub-branches, including the visits by RSL New South Wales CEO and Acting President, and the increased transparency in reporting is shown through the support received when State Branch reached out for financial support during the uncertainty of COVID, and I believe reinforced by the minimal questions asked of the financials when they were distributed. We hope that this transparency continues to build on the trust as we move forward as one RSL. I'll now pass to Daniel Cunningham, our audit partner from Ernst & Young, who will provide a brief comment on the audit opinion. Thank you.
Thank you, Nicole. Good morning, members. My name is Daniel Cunningham. I'm an audit partner of Ernst & Young. I can confirm that we were employed to perform an independent audit of the financial statements of RSL New South Wales for the year ended 30 June 2020. That audit has been completed, and as you'll see, I have issued an unqualified audit opinion. This year, the audit opinion does include an additional paragraph with respect to an emphasis of matter on the property valuations. This is in relation to COVID-19 and reflects the discussion that the independent valuer had when he conducted his independent valuation of the properties, and that has to be reflected in our audit report. All it does is heighten that there is an increased risk around the valuations because of the uncertainty because of COVID-19. My audit opinion, however, remains unqualified in this respect or any other respect. Thank you.
Thank you, Nicole and Daniel. Delegates, that concludes the presentation portion for today. I will now outline the rules and procedures for today's AGM in accordance with Appendix C of the Constitution. To move or second a motion, please use the thumbs up feature on the technology platform. The first two delegates to click will be taken as the mover and seconder of each motion. 3 proxies have been received for the chair. These votes have been precast in the voting platform and will be included in the results shown live. 1 proxy has been received for Director Philip Bridie, who will cast these votes live. In accordance with Appendix C of the Constitution, Clause 27, voting on motions will be by electronic mechanism. This is provided by Vero voting using the Chime platform. Before we get started, a reminder of how to cast your vote online. The left-hand side of your screen, selecting the voting in the menu. The main screen will change to show the test resolution we will vote on soon. When casting your vote, select either for or against. You do not need to press submit or enter. Your vote will automatically be cast. You'll have 20 seconds to cast your vote before the resolution is closed, and results will appear on your screen when the resolution has closed. We'll now have a test resolution to ensure voting works, familiarity of the voting online, and determine the number of delegates present to vote. We ask each delegate to click on the voting button, which can be found on the menu to the left of your screen now. The test resolution that allowing 50,000 people to attend the third state of origin, New South Wales, was seriously disadvantaged. And I see that the motion put 86.0% for the motion. I declare the motion carried. 13.92%, obviously Queenslanders against. I declare the motion carried. We'll move on now to motion number 1. Resolution number 1, that members adopt the minutes of the 2019 State Congress. I now call for a mover and a seconder to this motion. Please use your thumbs up feature on your screen. I've got Newtown moving the motion, and I've got Barham sub-branch seconding the motion. I now call on delegates. I put the motion. Vote for or against the motion. Just take a short break. Okay, sorry that I closed the motion off. I declare the motion carried with 98.8%, 1.1% against. I declare the motion carried. Resolution number 2. That members note the summary register of motions passed at Congress 2019 and the status of their implementation, and that in accordance with the resolution passed by members at Congress 2019, that an updated register will be provided to members within 2 calendar months of the conclusion of the 2020 AGM, formerly known as Congress under the Constitution, superseded on December 1, 2019. That motion is for noting, delegates, for noting only. Motion number 3. Motion number 3, that members adopt the financial statements and auditors report for RSL New South Wales for the financial year 30th of June 2020. And B, note the annual report of RSL New South Wales for the year ending 20 June 2020, and that annual report will be lodged with the Minister following the AGM meeting, the annual general meeting. I call for a mover and a seconder for this motion, please. Moved by Queanbeyan, seconded by Newtown. I now ask delegates to vote for or against the motion. I declare it closed. We'll now await the result. I declare the motion carried with 100%. We'll move on to the next resolution. Resolution number 4, standing motion membership fee. That in accordance with Clause 11 of Appendix B of the RSL New South Wales Constitution, an annual membership fee of $35 be allocated as follows. A. Capitation fees to RSL New South Wales be $20, of which $5 will be payable by RSL New South Wales in capitation fees owed to RSL National, being 57% of the total membership fee. And B. The sub-branch retention of $15, being 43% of the total membership fee. I call on a mover and a seconder for resolution number 4. Queanbeyan sub-branch is the mover and Kiama Jamboree is the seconder. I now ask delegates, I put the motion, and vote for or against the motion, please. Voting is now closed. Okay, I declare the motion carried with 86.67%. Thank you, delegates. Next motion. Motion number 5, resolution number 5, that the venue for next RSL New South Wales State Congress and Annual General Meeting or Extraordinary General Meeting conducted by way of in-person attendance will be at Newcastle Exhibition and Convention Centre, 309 King Street, Newcastle West. The board will determine whether or not such meeting will be held by way of in-person attendance or by teleconferencing in its discretion. I now call for a mover and a seconder for this motion, please. Moved by Albury, seconded by Orimba Lissero. Now call for delegates. I put the motion and call for delegates to vote for or against the motion, please. (99.2% for the motion, 0.8% against the motion. I declare the motion carried. Delegates, that concludes the voting portion of the AGM today for 2020. We'll now take a short break so we can welcome the board members. So don't go too far. Thank you very much. I'd like to just respond by, revisiting the motions that we put earlier. There was a 30-second delay from when I put the motions to you guys getting it out there. So I'd just like to go back through all motions that were put today and give you the final result. Okay. Motion number 1, that members adopt the minutes of the 2019 Annual State Congress. There was 126 votes for it and 2 against, and it was carried. Motion number 2 was no voting but for noting, and that was obviously 100%. Motion number 3, the annual financial reports and auditors' report, 100% for, and that motion was carried with 130 votes. Standing motion number 4, that was 3. Number 4 is membership fees. There was 102 votes for the motion and 102 motions for the vote and delegates for the vote and 33 against. 75% declared that motion carried. And the final one was a venue for Congress next year, 92%, which was 135 votes for the Congress venue next year and 1 against. Moving right on now, and like I said, welcome back and thank you for your patience with the few things that are happening here. And like I said, it was at this end, not your end, so be rest assured we've rectified the problem to date. I would like to thank my fellow directors who are moving on from the board today, that being Sandra Lamkin, Brian Slattery and Jonathan Tuckfield. They've been very good stalwarts and great friends, and we've gone through a lot and implemented a lot of new changes in RSL New South Wales. What I'd like to do now is introduce your new board, the new board of RSL directors for the next 3 years. Philip Bridie, Philip Chin, John Hutchison, Stephen Graham, Clinton Gross, David McCann, Greg Reid, plus our independent directors Sophie Ray and David Bell. I'm very pleased to welcome you all to the Board of Directors and Return and Services League of Australia New South Wales branch. And your skills and experience will be an asset to the board, and I look forward to working with you all. Ladies and gentlemen, that concludes today's AGM for 2020, and I now declare the meeting closed. But before we go anywhere, I'd like to now hand over to our CEO, John Black, who'll provide you with a short update. Thank you, John.
Thank you, President Ray, and can I also offer my congratulations to all members of the new board and my sincerest thanks to the retiring members. It's been an extraordinarily busy year, and I know that all the staff at Anzac House and indeed all the members are very pleased with what we're able to achieve this year through your support. In terms of an update, I'll be quite brief today because obviously this is a difficult way of communicating, and certainly from my perspective, I like to actually see the eyeballs of the people I'm talking to, and I know likewise it's been a terribly difficult year with the COVID, and while we can all get used to technology and using it from time to time, it's certainly great to be able to catch up with the members right across the state. I'd like to start with some thank yous though. The members throughout the state, when I've been fortunate enough to travel, your extraordinary resilience and commitment to the league is extraordinary. And it's something that we can all be proud of. Wearing the RSL badge is something that we can all be proud of. For the sub-branches, for me, I continue to be amazed by the volunteer effort. It is a big job running many of our sub-branches across the state, and again, the commitment from our volunteers to make that happen is something I'm extraordinarily grateful for. In terms of the team here at Anzac House, I couldn't be prouder. As Ray pointed out in his address, we've had to reduce the number of staff significantly, but the professionalism and commitment by all those who have departed, also the effort by all those who are remaining to ensure that we can meet all our objectives has been exemplary, and I thank everyone in the team for that. And I do notice that Nicole, and particularly thank Peter Gamlin and the staff at the Hyde Park Inn, which has endured many, many ups and downs through this COVID issue, and we thank you for your ongoing support. This year coming is about action. In my view, we've bedded down, we've got a solid base to move forward to, and as Ray pointed out in his address, the strategic plan has been approved. It's time to strap in, hold on to your seats, we're in for a ride, but we're going forward. Next slide, thanks. Oh, I've got the slide changer. There we go. Do a rehearsal, John. Today I'll give you a quick update on some key issues from Anzac House, and then I'll focus most of my comments around the strategic plan. In terms of Anzac House, a decision has been made to move. That is that we've given notice on the lease in our current premises, and we will be moving to a new Anzac House next year. It will be a temporary Anzac House. The Board of Management of the Anzac House Trust, who funds the rent here in our current premises, have decided that they're not going to rush into an investment at this time for a new Anzac House. Not just because of the issues relating to COVID and what's happened in the property market generally, as remarked in Nicole's comments today, but also we need to be carefully consulting where we need to be located for the future. So that is something in terms of decisions that have been made. We will be vacating the premises here at 341 George Street. The budget and the COVID-19 impact. As Nicole said, worked extremely hard to ensure we have a budget neutral position at State Branch. That is, we need to live within our means. We've adopted a new structure. We've significantly reduced costs, but despite that, with the COVID pandemic obviously going through into the current financial year, we are unfortunately now facing another deficit position. What we will need to do is to explain that in detail to sub-branches and again seek your assistance to try and supplement the budget for this year. I don't believe it would be prudent at this point to make any more cuts to the staff we have, in particular now that we've made the decision to implement the strategic plan. Charitable purpose and supporting RSL Defence Care. We've heard Ray today talk about the importance of that relationship ongoing, and indeed the performance of RSL Defence Care is now monitored through our very own Veterans Services and Policies Committee. It is, if you like, the delivery arm of the RSL, synonymous with our brand and the quality of services. And I thank the Defence Care team, not only for their professional way they transitioned across to RSL Life Care, but now having the reports coming through about the actual lifting of the services they're providing and the numbers of clients or veterans that they are supporting. That's good news. But what we will need, as Ray said in his presentation, is to ensure that our charitable effort, our charitable purpose in terms of our donations continues to channel in to RSL Defence Care. And you'll see on our website, in terms of transparency, the donations coming in from sub-branches, and then annually we will provide, if you will, a big cheque to RSL Defence Care through RSL Life Care on behalf of all sub-branches across RSL New South Wales. And I encourage you to look at the performance of RSL Defence Care, how many veterans they're actually assisting. And also, travelling around the state, it became clear to me that many sub-branches are still not aware of those services that are available to veterans in their respective communities. Well, it's support with their pensions advocacy or immediate financial assistance. It's there, it's ready, and it's supported by us, the RSL, across New South Wales. In terms of fundraising, the new board will be considering a recommendation to establish a fundraising committee. And this is not so much about the street fundraising, but focusing on corporate sponsorships. The RSL is a very, very well-regarded brand. However, we do have a challenge, particularly in New South Wales, with the public understanding the difference between the Club Limited, the licensed premises, and the sub-branch, which is the charity. And we need to continue to work on informing the community, but at the same time seek that critical corporate sponsorship, if you will, to support our charitable purpose. And I look forward to supporting the board in its decisions there. In terms of supporting sub-branches, as Ray said, the strategic plan that has been adopted really puts the sub-branch at the centre, supporting the veteran community. And that means that Anzac House is here to support the sub-branches. And whilst Jeff O'Brien and his team has managed to get out the new system to support the membership, there's a lot more we can do to help them, help all sub-branches, including financial assistance in terms of support systems, which has been on the agenda for a number of years, I understand, and it is in the strategic plan. It's now incumbent upon us to support all sub-branches in implementing such systems. We also need to tune up how we provide the support and assistance to sub-branches so that 24/7, or not quite, support can be provided. As I said, I am amazed and astonished at the extraordinary efforts by our volunteers right across the state. Transparency and information, Nicole and Ray spoke about that. It's a continuing focus of Anzac House to ensure the membership is aware of everything that we're doing. And particularly if we're going into now the implementation of the strategic plan, you quite rightly be holding the board accountable for the implementation of that plan, and we need to be totally transparent around how we're delivering it. I'd also like to draw your attention to the website. We need to continue to improve that so that there's quite distinctly a focus to our veterans and making sure the veterans are aware of what we do and what we stand for, but more particularly in terms of our internal consumption, the members area of the website, to ensure you can easily access the information you're looking for. I think we understand we've got a lot more work to do, but nonetheless there is a lot of information on the website and we can continue to improve that. Strategic plan implementation, I'll talk a bit more about that shortly. That will be the key focus for this year. As I said, it's about strapping in and holding on for the ride ahead. Just on the website, before I go into the strategic plan, I have received quite a lot of feedback from members that where is the latest news? We've had the news tab on the website this year. I do notice, however, not many people are accessing it. We will continue to improve that, so as the news comes to hand, it will be flashed onto the news feed before necessarily it's in the greater part of the website, to ensure members can get easy access to what's going on. Ray did mention in his address that when we travel around the states, there's a lot of members don't realise what's being done and what's happening, particularly from a state branch level. So please also write me an email or send me a message of some sort if there's any ways we can continue to improve the way we're communicating with all the sub-branches. I would also like to emphasise, additional to the website, we're going to be focusing a lot more on the social media channels, whether it's Instagram, Facebook or LinkedIn. You'll notice a lot of the other ex-service organisations are heavily focused on social media because that is where the younger veterans are connecting to. Now, there's no reason why the RSL can't be top of the table in terms of access to information through the social media channels, and that's what we're going to do. All right, moving on to the strategic plan. You might recall travelling around the state that the blue covered one was the draft for consultation. The new one, which is the approved one, is now up on the RSL New South Wales website, and this is the plan that was approved by the board in October. I'll now briefly talk about some critical aspects of it. Again, Ray mentioned in his address around the research that was undertaken, particularly between 2018 and the early part of 2019, surveying the membership and conducting workshops. That was incorporated into the plan. In terms of consultation, lots of miles, as we know, and lots of consultation with members. It is a plan by the members for the members, and it absolutely reflects the feedback we're able to achieve through that consultation. As well as the membership, we consulted extensively with current serving defence people and key stakeholders. Stakeholders like the Department of Veterans Affairs, Department of Defence, the ADF, and they were important stakeholders to understand intrinsically what the RSL was needed to do in order to deliver its charitable purpose, and really is focusing in on all our veterans. And really, in terms of the feedback, a realisation that the charitable purpose reaching all our veterans encompasses our members. And indeed, when I was getting the feedback around, well, who's going to look after our more senior members? Well, we need younger members to come in to support them and also the other veterans in our community. And that's what this plan's about. In terms of the assumptions, again, Ray touched on those again from Congress last year. Those key points is we will remain member-based, and uniquely so. Many of the other ex-service organisations are not member-based. We are. We mean something. This badge means a lot. It's very identifiable in the community. It actually signifies what we stand for and what we do, and that's what we need to be proud of being a member of this organisation. And an organisation that is not only 100 years old, or over 100 years old in terms of what it's been, it is there and it's recognised in our community, and that's what we will do. So we are going to remain member-based, and we're also going to remain a charity. Now that in itself provides a challenge to us, and I won't talk about that today, as it requires further consultation with the sub-branches as we manage those two things. In terms of the alignment, this was important. At the same time we were developing the New South Wales strategic plan, RSL National, again, they were subject to an investigation by the ACNC and required some corrections to their organisation, including the requirement to have a strategic plan, which they've done. So what we've been able to do is align the New South Wales plan with the national plan. And the national plan really focuses on two things. One is around the brand, and that's important for us here in New South Wales, so you won't see that replicated in our strategic plan. It is a national brand and it needs to be managed by the national headquarters. The second aspect is around advocacy, and that's a key part of what we do, standing for our veterans, ensuring they're getting the best deal in terms of the government. And that advocacy is best delivered face-to-face across the table in Canberra, and that's been recognised in the national strategic plan. I'm very pleased that we're able to align that with our own plan. All right, moving on to the RSL New South Wales plan. As you might recall, there is a change here. Now, the motto has not changed, and it's the easiest thing to remember. We will work together. And I think Ray stressed that numerous times during his address today. It is about working together, releasing the considerable resources that we have collectively across RSL New South Wales to that sole purpose of supporting for veterans and standing up for our veterans. But, as also said today, the focal point is the sub-branch. That is unique to us, it sets us up, it connects to every single community across this state, and that's what we want to build upon. The vision, and this is really important, this has changed because it was quite clear during the consultation process that people want to know what we stand for. People want to know what we do, and what we're going to do is to get every veteran involved with the RSL movement. Now, they might be a member, or certainly they're going to be aware of what we do to support them and the wider community, and that's what we do. We've got 5 years to do it, and I know, given the current membership, we've got the will, the capability, and the drive to make it happen. The new plan on the website you will see as a plan on the page, a simple plan on the page which will help us navigate what is quite some detail in the plan, as you'd expect, because you will be holding the board accountable to deliver it. So in terms of feedback, you will see we've strengthened the plan by making sure everything is underpinned by those traditional foundations on which the RSL was built upon. Emphasis, of course, around mateship. That really does set us apart, and Ray did speak about the strength and importance of camaraderie. The values. The Governor spoke about the values, and what I can say is that many younger veterans in particular are looking at an organisation, its values and what it stands for. And by virtue of the feedback we've had across our current membership, we had adjusted these values, as you can see. I don't think anyone will ever step away from these, and what I've seen around the state is that we can build upon these values. Everything we do and say will be rested upon these core values. We've reduced the number of goals. We're down to 6 through the feedback process. The first value is about standing for our veterans and their families. And there's been significant changes in terms of how we configure that. The feedback around the veteran sponsor came quite clear that we needed to be more focused on wellbeing support. And there are some very good non-accredited training packages that we can provide to those members who wish to volunteer to be a wellbeing support officer. And those people will be that primary contact within the sub-branch to ensure all veterans can get access to the services that are available to them. Also in Goal 1, to help that will be, again, Ray mentioned in his speech around some paid staff to support the districts and sub-branches, and that's something we'll look at in implementation phase of the strategic plan. Goal 2 is about telling our story. Everyone in the community will know what we do and what we stand for. And as I said, it is a challenge in New South Wales because the majority of our community see the RSL as the club, not the sub-branch. And so there's some quite distinct tasks and initiatives we have to remedy that. Goal 3. I'd say in balance in terms of the feedback, Goal 3, which is about growing membership, was the one that attracted the most attention. We realise as a member-based organisation, if we don't renew our membership, we don't exist in our current form. And as we saw, the members unanimously want to remain a member-based organisation. So what we need to do is to make sure that the community understands what we do and as a member of the RSL what it stands for, because it is about volunteering, it is about helping our fellow veterans and getting access to the support they need. And we're going to make it so it's valuable in their eyes to become a member. Also, we mentioned about the activities and sport and the things that will engage younger veterans, and we will do that. There's a program's already piloting at the moment, and I'm very grateful for the support we're receiving around the state. And I know out there in the far west, they've already cranked up the Anzac biscuit cooking competition. I'm a bit worried about the rules because it seems to be a bit biased to the rural areas, but we'll address that. But people having fun, getting engaged and engaged across the greater community is something we're going to do, and I'm really grateful that people started. Also, in the plan and the feedback we received, there will be no membership fees from 2022, so that will resolve any issues around debates at AGMs around that. However, it doesn't differentiate particularly about capitation fees, and that's something we'll have to address as we remain a member of the national organisation. In terms of Goal 4, this is around the setup of the technical aspects of what we're going to be doing in terms of connecting veterans in need to the services. This is about building that catalogue of services so people in the sub-branch can easily understand what's available to support the veterans in all our respective communities. And that's a significant part of that goal. Goal 5 is around how we manage the organisation and optimise our resources. This is about the systems. And the feedback I had about the lottery, every sub-branch consultation raised the Queensland lottery issue. So as well as specifically saying we need to look at our investments, about how we operate as a state branch to actually, if you like, mobilise the resources we have to the best effect, is that we have got a task in there now to establish a New South Wales lottery. Now that might be some time off, you'll see that in the plan and how we'd go about doing that. Also, it talks about rationalising the districts. I know Ray mentioned that in his speech, but when you see the detail there, that's a big task, not an easy task, and we need full cooperation right across the state in order to achieve it. Lastly, Goal 6 really does encapsulate one of those core foundations for the League, and that's around commemoration. The RSL brand is synonymous with commemoration, and we've got to make sure we continue to do that. We've got to invest in that. We've got to tell the wider community what the commemoration is about. That's something we cannot afford to lose. We are the custodian of the Anzac spirit, and we need to continue to do that. So hopefully that snapshot will help you in terms of articulating the strategic plan, and you can see on the left-hand side it's phased, and we've done that so we can actually do bite-sized chunks of implementation, and each phase has an associated budget. All right, implementation. It is something I'm very conscious about because the board, whilst approving the plan, has not yet seen an income stream or a budget to support its implementation. So we're very constrained at the moment about what we can do. However, as you know, through the consultation phase, we're looking at how we can pool the resources right across New South Wales in order for those sub-branches to make strategic decisions to invest in strategic initiatives through a pooled fund. We are continuing to work with that. We will continue to engage and consult with the sub-branches on that. One of the principles, the old board, and now we need to test that with the new board, really put in terms of stone and principle, was the fact it will remain a voluntary process. And that's the way it should be, but it's up to Anzac House to demonstrate how the pooled fund would work to the benefit of our charitable purpose overall across the state. And I noticed Ray in his speech mentioned the liaison officer, a volunteer out at the National Centre for Veterans Health. That's something, for instance, that we may consider so important that we might need a paid person to do that, and that's something that can be done through the strategic investment portfolio. And that's what we need to work out as a league, how we can generate programs and activities that really have state significance that enable us to propagate that through the media and engage the community more broadly about what the RSL is doing in terms of our charitable purpose to support all veterans. So it's an exciting time ahead, but I don't want to shy away from the fact about the timings of implementation of this plan. As I said, we can do very little unless we get the resources, and I'm due back to the board in March next year with a proposal about how we're going to fund all three phases of the strategic plan, a plan for the future of our league in New South Wales. In conclusion, I'd like to thank all the delegates for participating today. Difficult over technology, and one thing I've noticed, you might recall I only joined just before Congress started last year, and one of the big takeaways for me was seeing the engagement of the delegates in Albury, speaking to one another, understanding the league, what the challenges and opportunities were in each of the communities, hearing the presentation from Nambucca about what they're doing. All those things came together to me to tell me how important it is in terms of our organisation. A member-based organisation, the members need to get together, work together and help each other. So I really thank you for participating today and continuing your hard work across all your communities looking after our veterans. Your team at Anzac House is absolutely committed to supporting you and what we do right across the state. And certainly we're not going to waver from our commitment to that, and we're all very focused on delivering the strategic plan and what it means for us all in the future. Please enjoy a very safe and happy Christmas, and I look forward to seeing you in person again next year. Thanks very much for listening.
Okay, delegates, thank you for joining us online today. The minutes will be available by the 17th of December 2020 on the website. A copy of this meeting will also be available on the website in coming days. We look forward to being able to meet in person again soon, so please take care, and over the festive season, stay safe. Thank you.